This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Tuesday, March 10th. This is Africa 54. The coronavirus slows in China but soars in Italy as countries race to enact measures to limit the spread of COVID-19. Former Vice President Joe Biden hopes to cement his lead in a crucial round of Democratic primaries Tuesday. And Ugandan parents make a plea for the evacuation of dozens of their children in the coronavirus epicenter of Wuhan. As the death toll from coronavirus continues to mount in Italy, the government has taken the drastic step of putting the entire country of 60 million on lockdown, ordering people nationwide not to move around unless it's for work or emergencies. Public gatherings are banned and sporting events are suspended. In Central Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo Tuesday confirmed its first case of COVID-19, according to the health ministry. The patient is a Belgian citizen. In the U.S., coronavirus cases are surging, spreading to 34 states with at least 26 deaths. In China, a different picture is emerging. People are slowly returning to work as the number of new COVID-19 cases declines. VOA's Mariama Diallo reports.
Italy took a page from China's playbook and puts 16 million people in the country's north on lockdown. Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte imposed controls on travel from the northern region of Lombardy and parts of neighboring Veneto. The government also ordered cinemas, theaters, and museums to close. Italy is the hardest hit country in Europe, with the number of coronavirus cases soaring by 25% on Sunday. Over 460 people have died from the disease. Italians have been taking extra precautions and changing their daily routines.
I have a child, so obviously I do not take him with me to the supermarket for shopping. I go there alone and I always have the hand sanitizer with me.
A taxi driver says he wants to stay positive about his business, but
when these things happen, people are afraid.
Elsewhere in Europe, the number of cases in Britain rose by 30%. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said preparations were underway to step up the country's strategy for combating the virus.
We remain in the contained phase of the outbreak, but watching what is happening around the world, our scientists think containment is extremely unlikely to work on its own.
In the U.S., authorities in California created an 11-acre site at the port of Oakland to receive people from the Grand Princess cruise ship that's been idling off the coast of San Francisco, with at least 21 people aboard infected with the coronavirus.
Allows us a number of advantages.
Some of the passengers will be transported to military bases in California, Texas, and Georgia, where they'll be tested for the COVID-19 virus and quarantined.
The waiting's been the hardest part by far, and the inconvenience of possibly having to do another 2 weeks in isolation following this.
The World Health Organization warned Monday the coronavirus is closer to becoming a pandemic, but insists outbreaks in countries can be controlled through a combination of containment and mitigation measures.
Now that the virus has a foothold in so many countries, the threat of a pandemic has become very real.
Meanwhile, there are signs of easing where the virus started. China reported 40 new cases of COVID-19, the lowest since January when reporting began.
In
Hubei, no new confirmed cases were reported outside Wuhan for 4 consecutive days.
And in Wuhan, he says the number of newly confirmed cases remained below 50 for 2 consecutive days. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
A record plunge in global oil prices combined with the COVID-19 outbreak has left North Africa and the Middle East more exposed than other regions to fallout from a possible global recession, according to the World Bank. But economists say a prolonged loss of oil income in the world markets could cause huge damage to the global economy. VOA's Ladza Hoke explains.
Oil prices are down worldwide, and ordinary people like it.
Common people face difficulties, so if the prices go down, that would be good. It is festival time here, so people are facing extra expenses.
The prices of crude oil have plunged after the Saudi-dominated OPEC oil cartel failed to reach an agreement with Russia to reduce production in order to offset the effects of the coronavirus on the world markets. In response, Saudi Arabia announced that it will cut its oil prices and increase production. Analysts say the oil price war is driving the prices down.
Many producers open the tap. And the production, there is a surplus, huge amount of surplus oil production in the markets. A lot of oil, and there is no demand for that.
On Monday, major oil traders posted their worst day in years, and the Russian ruble fell 9%.
Well, the Russians are doing this out of a long-term strategic calculation. It will certainly hurt them in the short term. But their view is that by doing this, they can sufficiently damage the financial health of U.S. shale oil producers.
Tom Edsted, a researcher at the consulting firm Macro Advisory, says Russia has built a reserve to offset the losses.
They have a war chest of about 150 billion rubles built up in the National Reserve Fund, the National Wealth Fund. And that is specifically designed for a rainy day like this when they need to spend money because the oil price is low.
But some analysts say oil consumption and oil demand will continue to decline this year because the spread of the coronavirus is forcing many people to stay at home.
For the first time, more than 11 years of time, we have expected for this year, for 2020, oil demand, oil consumption will decline. It increases every year, but a decline because of what's happening in China, what is happening in the global economy.
The fear of coronavirus spread has already rattled world markets, and experts say adding an oil slump to the mix could cause economic recession. The head of the International Energy Agency is calling for solidarity among nations big and small because he says the collapse of one economy could affect the global economy. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
U.S. President Donald Trump sought to play down the plunging price of oil and the global spread of the coronavirus as markets plunged on Monday. Meanwhile, his advisors presented him with a list of policy recommendations they hope will mitigate the economic fallout of the outbreak. VOA's Patsy Widakuswara has more.
Stock markets dropped sharply Monday, with trading briefly halted on the New York Stock Exchange immediately after opening as the S&P 500 fell more than 7%.
This is one of the biggest market crashes we've ever seen. It's there's only been a couple of days that have seen a bigger drop in stock prices in the financial crisis at the height of that in 2008, and on a couple of occasions in 1987. And this is very similar. This is it's Black Monday.
In a market already weakened by the effects of coronavirus, oil prices took a steep plunge as Saudi Arabia slashed prices to maintain market share after Russia refused to reduce its output. President Trump sought to project calm by tweeting that lower gas prices will be good for the consumer and blaming the fake news for creating panic.
We've done a fantastic job with respect to that subject on the virus.
Trump refused to answer questions of whether he has been tested for the coronavirus and continued to downplay the outbreak, comparing the number of COVID-19 deaths with the flu and pointing out that with the flu, nothing is shut down, life and the economy go on.
Putting an economic frame on any kind of crisis is typically not what presidents do, and it's obviously very risky because it gives the appearance of being indifferent to not only the human suffering that could be out there, but also the fears.
Trump met with his economic advisors Monday and discussed steps to mitigate the virus impact to the economy, including possible payroll tax cut, subsidies for paid sick leave, and loans for small businesses.
We're also working with the industries, including the airline industry, the cruise ship industry, which obviously will be hit. We're working with them very, very strongly. We want them to travel. We want people to travel to certain locations, and not to other locations at this moment.
The U.S. State Department has warned Americans not to travel on cruise ships as authorities in California began unloading more than 2,400 passengers from the Grand Princess, where 21 people have been infected with COVID-19. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News at the White House.
The families of passengers and crew aboard Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 marked the first anniversary of the crash Tuesday, only one day after an interim report focused on software installed on the Boeing 737 MAX airliner. The accident killed all 157 people aboard. It was the second involving the new 737 MAX plane in just 5 months and led to its worldwide grounding. There were people from 33 nations aboard the Flight 302. Hundreds of relatives and friends from around the world traveled to Ethiopia for the memorial. Families from nations including Canada, the United States, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Italy, and France attended the ceremony at the crash site, which is about a 3-hour drive from Addis Ababa. The program included a tree planting and the reading out of victims' names. Human rights groups are urging Zimbabwe's government to investigate the case of an activist who disappeared 5 years ago. Itai Zamara was a fierce critic of the late President Robert Mugabe and his former deputy, now President Emmerson Mnangagwa. As Columbus Mavunga reports, the family is still looking for answers.
Shefra is the wife of missing activist and journalist Itai Zamara. She says photos are all she has of her husband since he disappeared 5 years ago. Zamara vanished in Harare on March 9, 2015 after going out for a haircut. Rights groups suspect he was abducted by state security agencies. Shefra wrote a letter to President Emmerson Mnangagwa and delivered it Monday.
My wish is that Mr. Mnangagwa responds to my letter and invites us, the Zamara family, and we sit down. I want him help me understand what happened to my husband. This is important even to the children, as they need closure, or they will grow up with anger, especially the boy. If they really want to do it, within a day we would know where Itai is, or what happened to him.
On Monday, Zimbabwe's Home Affairs Kazembe Kazembe said he would comment later when asked what police have done to find Zamara. After he went missing, Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights got a High Court order asking police to locate the missing activist. The organization sums up what it has experienced so far.
The best way I can sum it up is that it has been a tragic trail of no action. Nothing has happened. No serious efforts are being made to ensure that closure is brought to the matter in terms of us finding Itai, or efforts to make sure that we recover whatever remains of him.
Kwaramba thinks Zamara was abducted because he held protests against then-President Robert Mugabe, who had been in power for 35 years at that point. Shefra says her 2 children, 12-year-old Nokutenda and 8-year-old Nenyasha, still feel their fathers absent. That hurts her most.
My kids are still young and need daddy's love. Daily they ask me, when will daddy come? The boy at times asks, Mom, did daddy die? It pains me as I have no answers, so they get confused. So it pains me as I do not have answers and the government does not give answers too. So it really pains me that they are growing up with their daddy and not knowing what happened to him.
Several demonstrations to force Harare to reveal what happened to Zamara have not yielded results. But Shefra remains hopeful that President Emmerson Mnangagwa's government will give her an audience and an explanation. Columbus Mavunga, VOA News, Harare.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, can parents in Uganda persuade authorities to evacuate their children stranded in Wuhan? We'll be back.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Bottles, wood, plastic, electronic waste, and other discarded objects that had been transformed into art were shown in an exhibition called Brazil Recycled in Rio de Janeiro. Junior Cruz, an artist who began working as a joiner making furniture and pieces from wood, realized that the waste of all kinds of objects, including the wood, was affecting the health of the planet. This year, they created about 30 maps of Brazil, made with garbage and abandoned objects they removed from the beach, from rivers, and from other places. According to a study of the World Bank from 2019, Brazil is the fourth largest producer of plastic waste, 11.3 million tons, after the US, China, and India. Next up, Ghent in Belgium has successfully adopted environmentally friendly solutions to transform the ancient city by making it car-free. Electric buses, cyclists, and pedestrians compete for space on the streets downtown. Private vehicles have been redirected from the medieval city center since 2017. Car-sharing schemes, including electric vehicles, encourage residents not to buy a car, but only rent it whenever necessary. But the tough policies to lower emissions have come in for criticism for being unfair on people who are elderly or who have disabilities. This week, the European Commission unveiled plans for its first ever climate law, which will aim to make the bloc climate neutral by 2050. And that's what's trending today.
In the U.S. Democratic presidential race, another round of primaries on Tuesday looms as a crucial test in what has become a two-man nomination race between former Vice President Joe Biden and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. 6 states are holding nominating contests Tuesday. VOA's Jim Malone explains what's at stake.
Former Vice President Joe Biden campaigning in Mississippi, looking to expand his lead in the Democratic race on Tuesday.
I really believe we're creating a movement and a movement powered by the backbone and base of the Democratic Party. A movement that's going to defeat Donald Trump and restore the soul of this nation.
Biden has picked up the endorsement of 2 former rivals, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker and California Senator Kamala Harris.
I believe in Joe.
Thank God for Bernie Sanders.
Biden's main remaining rival, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, touted the endorsement of civil rights leader Jesse Jackson as he campaigned in Michigan.
So brothers and sisters, let us go forward. Let's win on Tuesday. Let's win the Democratic nomination. Let's defeat Trump. Let's transform this country. Thank you all very much.
Sanders also continues to complain that the Democratic establishment has united to stop him.
The question, which is what the media is preoccupied with, how can we stop Bernie Sanders? We got to stop the coronavirus and we got to stop Bernie Sanders. What a terrible thing.
They don't call Super Tuesday for nothing.
Biden's dramatic turnaround in the Democratic race last week in the Super Tuesday primaries also caught the attention of President Donald Trump.
I was all set for Bernie. I was ready to go. And then I say, I don't think I'm running against Bernie. I think it's going to be very hard for him to come back.
Biden won 10 of the 14 contests last week on Super Tuesday and totally reframed the Democratic race, says Larry Sabato.
I like to say that Biden was given the last rites, and now he's Lazarus because he has arisen from the dead, He has managed to surprise everybody and win a ton of primaries by landslide proportions in most cases.
Biden's success drove two other rivals from the race, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg and Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Which candidate can defeat Donald Trump?
Sanders' best chance to regain momentum may come Tuesday in the Michigan primary, says Jim Kessler.
If Bernie doesn't score a big victory in Michigan, you're really starting to see the end of the possibility of his candidacy, and then I think there'll be some unifying then.
In addition to Michigan, Idaho, Mississippi, Missouri, and Washington State hold primaries on Tuesday, and North Dakota will hold a Democratic caucus. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
Now for the latest on the Democratic presidential race, Associated Press global media reporter Philip Crowther joins me live from Detroit. Hello, Philip. If Joe Biden wins Michigan, where does that leave Bernie Sanders?
Well, the Vermont senator is really up against it, not just in the presidential race generally, the race for the nomination, but also here specifically in Michigan, because what we've seen from former Vice President Joe Biden is a real look toward a big win here in Michigan, the biggest prize of this series of primaries that are taking place across the United States this Tuesday. What Biden wants is a big turnaround, because what you have to look at here is the recent history of primaries and of the presidential election here in the state of Michigan. Remember that in the year 2016, Bernie Sanders came away from this state with a big surprise victory against frontrunner Hillary Clinton at the time. She then went on to lose to now President Donald Trump in the election in the year 2016. So what Biden wants to do here is not just turn this around against Sanders, but eventually, of course, turn this around against Donald Trump. And what he has on his side, the vice president, that is that key ingredient in the race for the nomination of a political party in the United States. That's momentum. He won in South Carolina, of course, the Saturday before last, then went on to win big on Super Tuesday. That momentum he brings with him into this day of primaries across the country.
So, Philip, Bernie Sanders is already complaining that the Democratic establishment already is united to stop him. But what does he need to do to clinch this nomination?
Well, he'll have to surprise us all here in Michigan, first of all, and then surprise pretty much everybody in a lot of states that are still to vote. It's not necessarily make or break time for the Vermont senator, but it almost is, and certainly here in Michigan. So what we've seen from Bernie Sanders over the last few days has been he has really concentrated on this one state because he got that surprise victory here 4 years ago, and he really needs it again. He's been campaigning alongside African-American voters. That is one demographic that he really needs on his side. That's why we're here at a community college in Detroit with largely an African-American electorate. They largely do tend to vote for Joe Biden, which, remember, got him his victories in the likes of South Carolina and then on Super Tuesday also in a string of southern states. What Bernie Sanders has been doing, he's been attacking Joe Biden for his role as what he calls an establishment candidate. He has also been attacking him for his history on trade votes. Those are ways that he thinks he can get inroads and again come away with a surprise victory here in Michigan and maybe in one or two other states that are voting today.
Well, we'll be watching, Philip. Thank you so much. Associated Press global media reporter Philip Crowther talking to us from Detroit. It's time for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with the latest on a desperate call from Ugandans in China. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Esther. At least 69 Ugandan students are effectively trapped in Wuhan, China, the epicenter of the coronavirus epidemic. In Uganda, parents of the students are pleading with authorities to bring them home, but Ugandan officials say they have no plans to do so. Halima Atumani reports from Kampala.
3 of Margaret Ntali's 4 children are studying in Wuhan, China, and have been quarantined there since the coronavirus outbreak began in December.
One of my daughters, the young one, Vivian, fell ill, and it scared me so much. And
it was a sore throat to the extent that she could not even talk. I was so scared until the point when they told me she didn't have the virus.
Ntale calls her children every day to ask if they are safe and healthy, free of the virus known as COVID-19. But she wishes they were back home in Uganda.
We pleaded with our government to send our children, to help us evacuate our children. And up to now they refused, and they gave us the reason that they are safer there.
Health Minister Dr. Ruth Acheng confirmed the students who stayed there for the time being.
I am not aware of the Chinese government requesting us to evacuate. To the contrary, I have a letter from the ambassador reassuring us of how well they are taking care of our Ugandan students.
Acheng also discouraged people from countries where the coronavirus is spreading from coming to Uganda, warning they face a 2-week self-imposed quarantine.
People residing in the following 7 countries: Italy, Iran, South Korea, France, China, Germany, and Spain should consider postponing non-essential travel to Uganda.
Since the outbreak, Ugandan authorities have identified about 1,300 passengers arriving from affected countries as high risk. Travelers, such as traders from Kampala's business hub, Chikubo, pose a threat to public health, says aviation public health specialist Dr. James Ayul.
Ugandans coming from China, our Chikubu traders, for example, I would say, they don't want to remain at home. They're a little bit stubborn because they think they're at home. And if we have one who is still within the incubation period, that will be the threat.
The best measure for preventing COVID-19, doctors say, is for everyone in affected countries to stay put, limit physical contact, and wait for the virus to stop spreading. But for mothers like Ntale, the waiting is the hardest part. Halima Athmani for VOA News, Kampala.
And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @Lenore Esther.
Thanks, Leno. Be sure to watch Leno Mudu's health reports every Tuesday right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.